Hello and welcome back to Vox Terra. I think it's really important that people not fall into like cliches of themselves by just checking all the boxes within what they think is supposed to be their political movement. If we do that, there's no way we're going to get people together to look at what I think we should all start our political analysis with, which is the fact that we are pumping our biosphere full of tons annually of greenhouse gases, carcinogens, endocrine disruptors, neurotoxins, mutanogens, all in just the support of this endless churning, burning of fossil fuels, use of plastics, pesticides, herbicides, a consumer capitalist system bolstered and dominated by a few dominant industries which are connected to our media and our politics. So to that end, I'm going to offer some criticisms of one particular aspect of the LGBTQ movement, and that is the trans, and what I'm calling overreach. Not the whole thing blanketly, just specific. Now, first of all, I want to say I'm very sympathetic to anybody. As a human being, I don't want to promote any type of hate or anything of that nature, but I still think it's important to do this. And I'll start just to show my sincerity here that part of our criticism or discomfort with trans could be something called cognitive dissonance. When something doesn't seem like something we're familiar with, we can't fit it into a category, we create this cognitive dissonance and start becoming agitated. Maybe that's something we in ourselves need to work on. And I also understand questioning what our culture assigns as affects for men or affects for women. Your classic pink for girls, blue for boys, and that culture changes over time what's assigned to them, including even mannerisms and ways of speaking. But it's just these one-sided narratives in the culture war that lead to a backlash. And whenever I hear so-called conservatives, who my concern with them is that they're harboring what I call the reckless elements of the business community, especially within the fossil fuel petrochemicals, whenever they are winning, or even not, I'm often hearing them use phrases like they are combating gender identity politics. I've heard this from the recent winner in the elections in Italy, Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil, and then Ron DeSantis in Florida, and so on. So rather than just simply saying, I'm against all that, why not look at what are some maybe there's more to the story and it's not so one-sided, not so black and white. So my very first specific criticism is over the one-sided narrative I hear within the media outlets I listen to over what are called gender confirmation surgeries or medical procedures on youth, on underage minors. I get questioning affects, but what about this questioning of biology? Here, couldn't we argue that we're applying human cultural standards on what defines a male, what defines a female? And then somebody saying, you know what, I'm not that. So rather than questioning those affects, I'm now going to question the biology itself and work to alter the course of the biology through hormones, through surgeries. Couldn't we argue that's a giving in to a cultural norm, giving into a definition of male and female? So that's what to me seems like an obvious liberal-minded criticism. Isn't it reasonable to argue there's some overlap with that unhappiness, that feeling like one's born wrong with other born wrong? Somebody feeling like, in the case of women, feeling their breasts are too small and now being convinced they need to have implants. Men feeling they're not happy balding and need to turn to Rogaine, which I believe is a hormonal treatment. And in the case of youth, is it really that easy to disentangle feelings of not liking the changes happening in puberty in general that many youth feel, that I myself and maybe you, if you're an adult, felt as well? Really wishing some of those changes weren't occurring. Well, what about the argument that gender exists on a spectrum? I heard in a TED Talk, a woman who said that she was born what we would have called maybe a hermaphrodite, meaning she had sex characteristics of both male and female. That's how she was born. I heard another speaker, this one a male, who said he also was born that way, but he argued from a very different position, although still defending trans. He argued that why should he have had that, what they then called gender consigning surgery, because he was born with both characteristics? Why not just leave him the way he was and accept his body how it is? Now, from a classic left point of view, meaning you're looking at the economic interests involved, well, what interests are served by this? Well, pharmaceutical industry, plastic surgeons, and then psychiatrists who are willing to then write those scripts. and make those referrals. From an environmental critique, a classic environmental critique, some of the classic slogans I've heard is walk softly on the earth, live simply so others can simply live. So just like I'm not comfortable altering our lives to serve a consumeristic economy, I feel the economy should serve humanity. So we say system change, not climate change. I'm also not comfortable altering the body to meet what people think is their definition of gender. People are also uncomfortable with the phrasing and the words and having to change their words now to describe people who they think of who are born taxonomically, biologically as a male or a female, because setting that hermaphrodite condition aside. And here I think there's some reasonableness to that discomfort. We're not applying it to other animals. Humans are an animal. We are a mammal. It feels arbitrary to some of us. And yes, you can argue gender is on a spectrum, but we could really argue many things are on a spectrum and then begin insisting people use our language for that. Another thing that I think feels reasonably somewhat unfair to people is this, that there's now a selectiveness of where gender segregation breaks down, but only selective to people who declare they're of the other gender. And there's a feeling of unfairness because we're not questioning gender segregation, we're just breaking gender segregation for people who now identify culturally as the other gender. Well, hey, I hope you found this interesting, food for thought. If so, please make sure you subscribe to my channel. You've clicked that notification bell. Sincere constructive criticism is welcome. Thank you to my 2 patrons on the Patreon. And as always, until next time, peace be with you.